Everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Elizabeth Corbett. Elizabeth, it's great to see you again, AE Global. I'm looking forward to this talk. You are the CEO of a company that does packaging and supply chain solutions, innovative and sustainable solutions built for business. And I thought we could start off, it's good to see you again. I know you were on the show back in July, so thanks so much. I thought we could talk a little bit about your business and how the tariff talks and everything that's going on with tariffs is affecting your business and how you're pivoting and what you're doing and, and how you're forecasting maybe a little bit differently. So I'll let you kind of kick that off.
Well, I guess all of us got a little preview to this 5 years ago, right? And so my company before COVID, about 75% of what we manufactured was offshore and about 25% was domestic. And now we're flipped. Now we're about 80% domestic and 20% offshore. Okay. So not every company has done that. Not every brand has done that.
I have a quick question. I didn't interrupt you, but yeah. Did you do that because you read the tea leaves, what happened in the past in preparation, or just because?
I think everybody read the tea leaves. Uh-huh. Most of the people that I know, because I work with a lot of customers who did the same thing, right? Or I used to do a bunch of work with Dyson, and Dyson thought they were doing the right thing and moved everything out of China, and they put 90% in Malaysia and 10% in the Philippines. And then COVID hit, and Malaysia ended up being one of the countries that had the tightest lockdowns. Yeah. So I think what everybody learned is to diversify your supply chain, right? And that meant don't move it all to Mexico, don't move it all to Malaysia, don't move it all to Vietnam. Look at your overall footprint and figure out what you can do to reduce that risk, right? Yeah. So part of it was reading the tea leaves, right? Part of it was also realizing that China was slowly becoming more expensive. And, China 20 years ago wasn't the China of today or even 5 years ago when you look at it from a cost perspective. So I think that, like I said, 5 years ago, we did, as did, some other brands that I know, tried to figure out, okay, what's the plan moving forward? Yeah. Where I think what's interesting that I'm seeing now, and I've been doing this for 25 years, for the very first time in my career, a folding carton, right? That's like secondary packaging for a lot of things. A folding carton, particularly at just normal volumes, is now the same price, if not less expensive in the United States as it is in China. Mm-hmm. And that was slowly happening over the last month, right? Every new tariff rate, it was getting more and more there. But even when you got to 50 or 75, and now obviously 150 plus, it all of a sudden it was like, okay, so that makes sense. There are a lot of, and for me, I have folding carton production in the United States, but on really, really large volume stuff, let's say 1.5, 2 million cartons for large brands, large products, it was still less expensive to do it in China, and that's no longer the case. Yeah. Right now, there are still things that make sense to do there. Unfortunately, if you do glass, you're kind of stuck if you want to stay in glass. If you do tin, you're kind of stuck, But personally, if my packaging was tin, I would be looking to change it, because not only do you have 150% tariff, but you have that extra 25 or 50, depending on, I'm not quite sure who understands all of it. I recently saw somebody who was rolling out brand new product in tin at Natural Products Expo. And I just said to her, I said, if I were you, I would redo your packaging. Yeah. There are other things that we can do that's just not tenable.
Yeah. So let me, I want to continue this conversation, but I just want to say, your mission as a company is to build sustainable packaging and supply chain programs for companies. So you're really in the thick of it with all of this. And so how do you, as a business owner today, how do you, forecast? How are you forecasting differently? How are you communicating with your clients differently? How are you setting yourself up to to grow over the next, 6 months to 3 years? Like, how are you looking at your business differently today? And then, fast forward, 12, 24, 36 months.
I think open and honest conversations
Uh-huh.
are really the most important. I've had those conversations with the people who work for me.
Yeah.
I've made it really clear that you this is not the time to be sending over an email that says, "Oh, by the way,"
Yeah.
right? I had a conversation last week with a customer that was a tough conversation. I got yelled at. That's not awesome.
Yeah.
But by the end of the conversation, we got to a much better space, and then within a couple of days, everything was smoothed over. And it was just I'm just a real fan of open, honest phone conversations, face-to-face conversations. I think that from my business perspective, yes, I'm going to have probably some business that goes away. I'm going to have some products that people decide no longer to do because the format's just too expensive. But I have other people that we're working with, and I'm getting, believe it or not, I'm getting a ton of referrals right now.
Yeah.
We do a lot of flexible packaging, and the people that I've been doing a good job for, they've been referring me to people. I'm getting one almost every day now.
That's
You know,
amazing.
I was doing all my flexible packaging in China. I really need some help. Yeah, I joked with my husband, I'm working harder now than I probably have in 20 years, just
Yeah.
because it's the combination of helping the person who's all of a sudden really stuck, and I want to really help them while not abandoning the customers that I really want to take care of.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
there's,
overall, I'm very positive about our future. It's just going to take a lot of work.
yeah, there's a saying, never waste a good crisis. And and you can point to we can point to a lot of different companies that have actually grown during a crisis. Airbnb. I mean, we can point to things where people saw opportunity. Where's the opportunity in your business to grow that before this you just weren't thinking about it?
It's not that I wasn't thinking about it, but there was a lot of packaging that was being produced offshore that when you get down to it really didn't need to be.
Yeah.
And I get the food business is so competitive, right? But was it really worth it to save I've lost business to China on a penny per
Mhm.
unit, right? And then you look at the pain point of what it is to manage that and cash up front cash flow. It's tough.
Yeah.
So I didn't, I'll be honest, I never foresaw 150% tariff. I am not that kind of psychic. So I didn't expect this, but everything that we've built has put us in a really good position. And from a sustainability perspective, it is a lot more sustainable just from the overall shipping footprint to be manufacturing all that product domestic anyway.
Yeah.
Whether that be the US, Canada, Mexico, it's much more sustainable to be manufacturing that here.
Yeah. I want to go back to something. Thank you for that. I want to go back to something that you said about, phone calls and face to face, because I think this is a big topic. This is a big topic, I think, for a lot of reasons. Really, frankly, that has nothing to do with the tariffs. It just happens to be a skill set that you need in tougher times. And there seems to have been, and I think from my perspective, from many people that I talk to, from clients that I talk to, COVID began to change the game where things got done over Zoom, over Teams, things got done via email. There was a disconnect. It was already kind of starting to happen, I think, frankly, before COVID, but I think it really turbocharged this text email communication where the old school picking up the phone and calling someone or going to meet somebody face to face became what now is a major differentiator. And so my son is graduating college. He's looking for jobs, and he was referred to this one person, and sent an email, nothing back, and picked up the phone and called him, and he said, "Hey, nobody ever calls me." And I hear that from clients all the time. So, graduates people that I talk to in college are afraid to pick up the phone. I work with, as a business coach, salespeople, managers, executives, CEOs. So many people don't pick up the phone enough, and they rely on email. so many people don't get in a car and drive 20 minutes to go meet someone and worry why they don't get a deal. Anyway, a bit long-winded, but can you talk about that, the importance of a phone call and a face-to-face?
Absolutely. So I'm an extrovert at heart. My Myers-Briggs is ENTJ. My sister says that is, according to the Onion, destroyer of worlds. So I should make that in my signature.
Yeah.
I can tell you so many pieces of business over time that I closed by a face-to-face meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. When you finally get it, it's for one thing, sometimes it's much easier to get all the decision makers in the room.
Yeah.
That has been that's been probably one of the most painful things I have seen during COVID, from COVID, the leftover
Yeah.
is taking so much longer to get decisions done because I've got decision makers in 10 different states, right? Or whatever. Just getting everybody in a room. I have a true story. I'm going to be at the Sweets and Snack Show in Indianapolis next
That
month.
sounds good. Yeah.
It's a great show. I happen to love Indy. But I figured out that there is a new customer that we're working with that we've closed our first item, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with Indiana. So I looked them up and I was like, oh, they're an hour and a half out of Indianapolis. Called my rep who's calling on the account and I said, hey, reach out to them. Let them know we're going to be in Indy and we'd love to come see them. They replied back in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They were like, we'd love to see you. First of all, I bet nobody goes there. I'm sure they have nobody go see them.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm really excited about that meeting because it's going to give us an opportunity to talk about a whole bunch of other things. And I'm going to have 5 stakeholders in a room versus 1.
Yeah.
So I find that most people are pretty open to face-to-face meetings. They like them. I have a very good friend who owns a PR firm who at her own admittance said that she gotten a little complacent and she lost 2 accounts.
Yeah.
And so she has been hitting the pavement hard. You know what I mean? Like out meeting people for the first time in a while, like new people.
Yeah.
And it started in December. I talked to her last night and she goes, I'm getting so much more traction by meeting people face to face. She goes, whether it's coffee, whether it's happy hour, whether it's seeing him in their office. She said, she goes, none of it's going to be immediate. She goes, but my pipeline, she goes, 2026 is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And she said it's solely from face-to-face meetings.
Yeah.
It makes such a big difference.
Makes such a big difference. And it used to be, and it is for maybe now, let's say the top 10%, maybe 20%, that, getting in your car and or getting on a plane to go meet somebody was the cost of doing business. And I think sometimes today people confuse a lot of phone calls and just talking to somebody as building relationship capital. But it's easy to say no to someone when you have no emotional face-to-face connection. So I think that's great.
And I also think it helps you build once they are a customer, either existing or target customer. There's nothing like I was at Natural Products Expo in March, and all of a sudden I heard somebody. I'm not very big. I'm like 5'5", and I hear somebody yelling my name from a distance and coming from behind me and just picking me up and lifting me off the ground. Right. Yeah. And it was somebody who'd been my customer one place, moved to another place. We just started talking. We're going to start doing business again. But honestly, that came from having like personal connections over the last 3 years. That is the best, right? I want to have, I'm somebody who wants those relationships. Like you said, it's a lot easier to say no if you don't have that personal connection.
Yeah, no, it's so important. And I hope that starts to, I'm already starting to see it come back a little bit because like your friend, I hear a lot of people will say to me, they'll call me and say, hey, I need a business coach. I'm losing business and I don't know why, because I'm doing the same thing that I've been doing over the last couple of years, but I'm losing clients. And a lot of times the through line is everything that leads up to them not picking up the phone or not going to a meeting. They lost the mind share. They lost the market share. They lost the brand and the emotional connection. So I think it's really, really important. And especially in times like today, times like today, like you said, just going back to your conversation, you need to have some tough conversations. And a lot of times those are a lot better when you're face to face.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I just, there are so many things that could be accomplished with a quick phone call or a face to face
Yeah.
versus 20 emails back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I love picking up the phone and just calling people when emails get a little out of control.
I'm
All right, so,
notorious for being the person who picks up the phone.
yeah. Yeah. And you can learn so much. I remember when I started my business, Elizabeth, 10 years ago, I was listening to a podcast, and there was this woman on it who was talking about um, social media, videos, etc. And so she said, "Hey, if you ever have any questions, just here's my cell phone. Call me." She says on the podcast. So I picked up the phone and I called her, and I'm not saying this to impress anyone, just to impress upon the idea. She had said, "I've been in the business for so many years. You're the 14th person that's called me. I give myself out to everything." And she gave me a piece of advice that helped me launch my business. She told me she said, "I want you to do," I said, "I just launched my business like a week ago, or whatever it was, a month ago." She said, I want you to do 100 1-minute videos and then 100 videos in 100 days. And this is how I want you to format it. And I did it. And it was all because of a phone call.
Wow. That's great advice.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. All right. So talk to me about a lesson that you've learned these last couple of years. We've kind of talked a little bit about some, but a lesson that has just transformed the way you think and transformed your business.
I think this is a lesson I knew before, but sometimes you make mistakes. I worked with I won't say who it was. I worked with a large client last year, and I did quite a bit of business with them, but not all the business I really wanted. And what I figured out was I wasn't necessarily working with all the right stakeholders, and the stakeholders I had sold, um, they were too siloed. So the stakeholders that really understood what I was doing didn't necessarily they didn't have the authority
Yeah.
to do some of the other things. And within that company, because they didn't have that authority, I did a full analysis of like 150 SKUs. They had bought a bunch of companies. And so every time you buy somebody, you just threw on the new branding, but who knew about the package, right? And there were some things that I was able to get them to change, but they had the opportunity to reduce the sizing on probably 75 SKUs
Yeah.
and save a ton of money and make the right steps from a sustainability perspective. But my problem was that the person who was really in charge of that felt like I was telling him that his baby was ugly.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean it, because for me I was just so excited, right? Look, I just found this way that you're going to save all this money and you're going to be able to tell everybody I did this great thing from a sustainability perspective. And I never was able to I was able to do a ton of design work, which was great.
Yeah.
We were able to help them. They were a company that we did hundreds of thousands of dollars with last year, but I didn't get the portion of the business that was larger because I figured out I didn't offend him, but you know what I mean? He wasn't a real stakeholder. And then the other thing I figured out was he had no incentive. He had no incentive to make those changes.
Yeah.
Whereas that's an intercompany thing. So for me, the big lessons I learned there was I needed to have a better understanding of their whole landscape within that company before I started charging into what I thought were the right things to do for the company. They actually were. I just didn't find the right path to the person who had the checkbook and the person who figured out, wow, this would be great for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Good lesson. And I think, I think we've all been burned on not knowing all the decision makers, but think we did. And that's not knowing all the competitors we're competing with to know how to pitch ourselves, not knowing all the influencers, and maybe that one question we forgot for clarity. But I think I read a lot of business books, but you really learn by doing and and the mistakes that you make. So I appreciate you sharing that lesson. All right, let's do a quick speed round. A book that's had a big impact on you, Elizabeth.
Oh, Never Eat Alone.
That's a great one. Yeah, that's a great book.
It's literally my favorite business book.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Good to Great. I like all the basics. But I reread it every year.
Yeah, it's a great one. He has Chris Voss has a great master's class on masterclass.com. You would enjoy too.
Oh, that's great. I
Yeah.
actually bought it for every person in our company last year.
Oh, did you? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
what a great gift. Yeah. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
Oh, that's a couple things. Pick your battles.
Yeah.
Pick your battles. It's kind of like never sweat the small. Sometimes it's don't sweat but pick your battles.
Yeah. And finish this sentence. One way for everybody to kind of find the lesson that they need to learn the most is.
Oh. I'm a really, really big fan of 360 feedback.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough, I worked for a company called Nina Paper for 17 years, and they sent me through something called the Center for Creative Leadership, which was a phenomenal experience. And I learned a lot about myself and how I impacted others that I didn't realize that I was doing.
Yeah.
And it really, to this day, and that was a long time ago, to this day, I take those lessons to heart because I know there's a little bit of me still in there that I always have to work on.
Yeah. I mean, raising our awareness and being self-reflective is key. It's those are moments I think where we grow the most. I have lots of stories like that too for myself, where it causes you to kind of like stop and make sure that you're just more aware of your surroundings. Yeah.
I have a hard time asking for help. I always have. I grew up in a really independent family. And I had my husband had open heart surgery last year. So I had a lot going on, and one of my dearest friends literally said, "I'm showing up on this date. I will be in your house for a week. You're just going to have to deal with it."
Yeah.
And it was like, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, that's awesome."
Yeah.
But I was never going to be the person. All of my friends knew I would never be the person to raise my hand and say I need any help.
Yeah. All right, we're good. Well, a to be continued lesson. So
always.
Always. Yeah, me too. Tell everybody who your ideal clients are and how they can connect with you, Elizabeth.
Everything from small to large. I would say MOQ for something could be like 5,000, particularly, for custom. And then I work with customers that are doing 5 million units. So really top to bottom. And we work with customers at every stage. So everything from structural and graphic design through prototyping, through production, through managing your full supply chain. And, I help some customers just at the structural design and design stage. I help some on production, and some, it's the whole gamut.
Yeah. All right, good. And how can they connect with you?
Best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. And I'm very good about being responsive on there.
All right, good. Well, Elizabeth, this was great. I appreciate all your insights, and in community, we talk a lot about lessons, and we grow from the doing, and we extract the lessons, and that's how we grow. But really important, and I appreciate, Elizabeth, how you shared how you're kind of looking at your business today with a different lens, with tariffs, with meetings and phone calls specifically. Think community, old school is the new school. Calls and meetings go a long, long way to grow your business. If Elizabeth can help you, please reach out. If I can help you, please reach out to me for any coaching needs at jondwoskin.com. Elizabeth, thanks so much. This was great.
Thank you.